Okay, so I want to start by showing you a picture of somebody that a lot of you will probably know, and he's probably kind of a famous person. Okay, so this picture is a picture of a guy named Tom Brady. How many of you know who Tom Brady is? How many of you would, yeah, how many of you would like to boo Tom Brady? Just, there it is. How many of you would like to cheer Tom Brady? So I have, I'm not a huge professional football fan, but let me tell you a little bit about Tom Brady. Okay, Tom Brady happens to be the quarterback for one of the most successful NFL football teams ever over the last couple of decades. Tom Brady has led his team, the New England Patriots, to 4 Super Bowls. Okay, which is phenomenal. He's in a lot of people's eyes, he's the best or one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Okay, he has all sorts of records and has done all sorts of amazing things. So he's achieved success kind of in his career, in his field, whatever we might call success. The result of that in our culture is he's got a few dollars to his name. Okay, he's got money upon money upon money upon money. His money has money. Okay, that's part of it, and that's okay. We don't bemoan Tom Brady that at all. He has a wife and a couple of kids that he seems to be fairly engaged with and seems to love, and as much as you can tell from a distance, right, and speaks well of them and seems to be engaged in them often. And so Tom Brady, you could look at him and you could say, man, in so many ways, Tom Brady, that's successful or whatever is successful. Again, however you want to define success, but he's kind of the peak of his field, right? He's done that really well. He's made money, which it seems like people want to make money. He's got this family thing, which it seems like people want to have this family thing in large shot. And all that's fine and good. That's not really what intrigues me about Tom Brady. What intrigues me about Tom Brady is an interview that he was a part of a few years ago. He had only won 3 Super Bowls at that time. But he had this interview, and they described to Tom all that he had accomplished, all these things about his life, right? Man, Tom, you're famous, you're well known, you've won all these Super Bowls, you have all this money. And Tom, when we say that to you, what do you think about all that? How does all that hit you when you hear that about your life? And what's really intriguing to me is not all those things that are true about Tom's life. What's intriguing to me is Tom's answer. See, when Tom was asked the question, you know what he said? He said, when I hear all that, I just think, please tell me that's not all there is. Please tell me that it's not just this that it's all about. Please tell me there's more. Not more championships and more money, but tell me there's more to life than this. Please tell me that all that I've accomplished, please tell me that all we've done, please tell me that's not it, right? What's really intriguing to me is it's easy for a lot of us to look at a guy like Tom Brady and say, well, that's it, right? And yet he's not the only one. That in a lot of the world's eyes would have lots of things and say, please tell me that's not it. Here's what I love about the answer. Is that I think most of us find ourselves giving the same answer to whatever our life condition is. Even if we lined up all of the good around us, or the good, I think there's a lot of us that would say, man, please tell me that's not it. Please tell me, I'm having all of this, I'm tasting all of this, but I don't know. Please tell me there's more than this. Please tell me this isn't the end. See, what Tom Brady wants isn't just another championship. It's not just a little more money. What Tom Brady wants is kind of what you and I want, right? We want more than a new year. We want more than some new goals. We want more than some new thoughts about some new goals. We want more than new habits. We want more than new stuff. We want more than just a clean slate to kind of start again in 2019. What we're really saying is, man, please tell me that this isn't it. What I want is a new me. What you want is a new you. Not new stuff, not just a new year, not just a new opportunity. What I want is a new me. What you really want is it's a new you. And I mean, that's been humanity since almost the beginning of time as we know it, right? This reality that there's something in us that says, what I really want is I want a new me. Something could be different here, right? A new you. We've accomplished a lot. We've reached a lot of goals. We've got a lot of good things. We've done a lot of good things. And yet there's this lingering question. Yeah, but what about me? How do I get a new me? How do I get a new you? Now, because it's been this common question that people have asked, that humanity's asked, there's actually a little bit of a pattern that develops. There's some common moves that we make. There's some common things that people like you and me do to find the new you, to go achieve that, to go accomplish it, to uncover it somehow. Let me just go to the flip chart here, and let's just talk about a few of them, a few things that we universally kind of tend to do in hopes that we would get a new you, okay? So the first one is simply this. We set out to prove ourselves. We say, hey, okay, what does it look like for me to attempt to somehow prove myself, just to say, look, I'm going to make a mark. I'm going to prove myself to the world. I want a new me. You want a new you. So what we go do is we go say, look, I'll prove myself. I'll prove that I'm worth something. I'll prove my value. I'll prove my place. I'll make my contribution. I'm going to leave my mark. And we go for it. And there's not a lot wrong with that. Okay, I mean, we understand that, right? We want to prove ourselves. We want to find our way. And so oftentimes we start there. And then what we come across is this human reality that all of us experience, is that we all experience some pain. And so then somewhere along the way, we say, hey, you know, the other thing I want to do is, in order to really kind of have a new me, I'm going to have to beat pain. Pain happens. We've all experienced it. We're all going to experience more of it in this life. I don't mean to be a bummer on the first Sunday of the new year, but pain seems to just keep coming, right? And so we kind of say, hey, okay, look, I'm going to beat that pain. I've got some ideas on some ways that I'm going to beat pain. And I'm going to beat pain in part so that I can find friends. We're created to be relational beings. We understand that there's something in us on some scale, no matter how large or small, we want to be with people. And maybe sometimes it's be with family, and then it expands beyond this family dynamic. We're wired to kind of have some friends. And so we say, look, if I'm going to have a new me, part of what's going to play into that new me is I'm going to find friends. And what we hope is that in some order, this gets a little bit of momentum going somehow. Regardless of where we might start, we want to get a little momentum, because at the end of the day, when we're looking for a new you or a new me, what we're really hoping to do is find ourselves in this place where we get to enjoy life. I just want to enjoy life. Whatever that means for you or for you or for you or for you or for me, we just want to enjoy life, right? I mean, and what's so bad about that? Nothing. There's nothing that's so bad about that. And so we kind of say, I'm gonna prove myself. I'm gonna have a new me, and I'm not just gonna set another goal. I'm not just gonna make another mark. I'm gonna prove myself to the world, to the people around me. I'm gonna prove myself to myself. I'm gonna beat pain. Yep, it's gonna come. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna find some friends, and along the way, I'm gonna enjoy life. And there's this little pattern that emerges, and yet here's the challenge. That pattern, or those characteristics, those ingredients, are remarkably commonplace. And most of us reach New Year's and are still asking the same question. Isn't there more in this? Like, please tell me this isn't the end. I proved myself. I found some friends. I beat some pain. I think I'm supposed to be enjoying life, but something's not completely adding up. Please tell me. It's this pattern, common, this movement that's common, that we find ourselves living in. There is some alternatives. See, there's a lot of good in that. But there's some ways to unlock the best, the right, the pure, that's kind of hidden sometimes within those good. In order to begin to see it over the next few weeks, we're going to look at just primarily one story within the scripture. It's one kind of analogy conveyed to us by Jesus in John chapter 10. And so if you grabbed a blue worship center Bible, we'll put the page number on the screen for you. And we're going to be in John 10, and we're just going to talk through this very oftentimes well-known analogy of Jesus to some people who are kind of hanging out with him. And here's the context. He's talking to some religious leaders in the day who, even the religious leaders, they want to enjoy life. But they're the epitome of this in so many ways. He's talking to some of his followers who are kind of also listening in on this conversation, and they're being shaped by it. They're getting windows into who he is. And here's the context. Just a couple stories ago, in what would be John chapter 8 in our Bible, Jesus has jumped into the fray to protect a woman who is caught in sin, and she's got a bunch of people who want to stone her to death. And Jesus jumps in, and he extends incredible grace to her. And what's remarkable about that is when Jesus jumps in and extends grace to her, it somehow silences all of her critics. Jesus' judgment of them doesn't silence them, really. What Jesus is doing is putting his graciousness to all people on the table, and it silences the people who want to stone her. He's just literally saved a life, physically and spiritually. And he says, hey, go sin no more. I want to help you enjoy life. Go sin no more. Just go live differently. Go have a new you. Then he heals a blind guy, and the religious leaders want to poke at that because they're not really sure how he did it, and they're a little confused, and they're a little intimidated by the fact that he's doing some remarkably powerful things, and they can't quite get it in a perfectly measured box that they can control. And so into the middle of all of that, Jesus gives this analogy in which we get to kind of see how he invites us to experience a new me, a new you. This is what he says, starting in verse 1. Very truly, which are these words to say, man, this is really important, guys. Please listen. Very truly, I tell you, Pharisees, all you religious people who you want this too, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate but climbs in by some other way is a thief and a robber. Right off the bat, Jesus is saying, hey, I want you to know that this new you life that you want, it actually is opposed. There's a challenge. There's a resistance to you having a new life. There's a resistance to you experiencing life and living in the world in a new way. And Jesus is going to convey himself as this shepherd, this leader, this guide, but he's contrasting himself to a very real thief. And that thief, he's going to talk about that thief, his enemy, Satan, that comes up a couple of times in this analogy that he paints. Verse 2. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd or the leader of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name, and he leads them out. When he has brought out all of his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they're never going to follow a stranger. In fact, they'll run away from him because they don't recognize the stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech. He's trying to explain, he's trying to take a spiritual reality, a spiritual truth, and give it some natural context for us to understand. He used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees, they didn't get it. They're clinging to some control here. They didn't get it. They didn't get what he was telling them. Verse 7, therefore Jesus said again, look, let me try it again. I tell you, I'm the gate for the sheep too. And all who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep, man, they don't have to listen to them. I'm the gate, and whoever enters through me will be saved. They'll come in, and they'll go out, and they'll find pasture. And then verse 10, which so much of our heartbeat and following Jesus' heartbeat hubs around this verse at Journey. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy, and I have come that they might have life, and they might have it to the full. Let's just talk about this for a second, and then we'll go back and we'll catch a few more of these sentences that Jesus uses to describe what's going on here. See, Jesus says, I want you to have life. I want you to just have life. I want to give you my life so that your life just naturally overflows with love and hope and kindness and patience and resilience and perseverance. And I want to give you my life. I want your life to be so full of me that literally you can't contain it. That my qualities are so full in you, they just leak out of you onto the people around you. I want that to be true of your life. But what he says before that is you got to understand there's a thief. I do have an enemy, and so you have an enemy. And here's the reality. Here's why he describes Satan as a thief. See, here's the thing. Satan, his only option is to steal because he can't create. Satan's not creative, he's just crafty. God's the creator. God creates. God speaks things into creation, and then he invites us to be part of his creativity. But Satan's not creative, he's crafty. So he takes what's been created, he takes full life, he takes the way to a new you, and he steals it, and he distorts it, he twists it, he bends it. And then when he bends it enough and he gets us to buy into it enough, he starts to kill our very life. He starts to kill our very experience of full life and destroy our life. And we find ourselves at the end of these seasons and these years saying, wait, please tell me this isn't it. And it's not. See, all of these things, they have some expression inside of Jesus' desire. And in John 10, Jesus conveying himself as a shepherd and us as the sheep. All of these are kind of in there. But all of these are actually Satan's slightly warped way of playing them. See, he's tried to steal this living truth from us, twist it, and invite us to live it a different way, which is why so many of us live this and then get to the end and say, wait, isn't there more than this? Let's just play it out for a minute. What he does is he twists things, he takes things, and he plays them out to different extremes, and we get caught in the momentum of that. So let's just talk about prove ourselves for a little bit, right? Listen, all of us were made to make a difference in the world. You have a God-given destiny to make a difference in the world, partner with his kingdom. That's a God-given reality about your life. That's a Jesus-shaped part of your spiritual DNA. But Satan comes along and says, man, you know what? That's true, and that's got huge impact. So I'm going to steal that idea, and I'm going to twist it. I'm going to try and kill the idea, and I'm going to get people to live in the extremes of this thing it's going to destroy. So what do we do on one side? We try and prove ourselves. What's one way we do it? We say, look, I'm going to work. That's where we get workaholics. That's where some of us have become workaholics because we've said, this is how I'm going to make my mark. I have to prove myself. I have to prove myself to my family. I have to prove myself to me. I have to prove myself to the people around me. And so we lean in all the way. Listen, work's a good thing until it's a king, until it's a master. And that's what the twist becomes. But here's the other extreme. Satan can also play the other side of the pendulum where we just say over here, no, you know what? I'm not going to work. I'm just going to live entitled to whatever it is I think I deserve. So on one extreme, we say, look, I'm going to prove myself by working really hard. On the other, we prove ourselves by yelling really loud about what we think we deserve. And both are these mixed up expressions of what's a really good thing that you and I were created to make a difference in the world. You're created with gifts and skills and abilities to partner with Jesus to move his kingdom forward. And Satan takes it and says, man, you know what? You just need to prove yourself. Nobody really believes in you. Nobody's giving you the credit you deserve. So work harder. Prove yourself. Prove yourself to your family. Prove yourself to yourself. Or you know what? You shouldn't have to do anything. Just sit back and take it. Scream really loud. And it gets twisted. Same thing with beat pain. What are the extremes here? One is we just ignore it. We say, oh, pain? No way. If you can give me pain, I can grow a larger callus on my heart. You can't hurt me. You can't touch me. There's just no way. I will numb myself to that pain. I will put my head down. I will pull up my bootstraps, and I will just march through that pain, and we'll just ignore it, and we'll act like it doesn't exist. It's one extreme where we know there's pain there, but we just push it aside. Here's this other extreme where we get a little out of balance. We say, oh, you know what? I would never ignore my pain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to become so absorbed with self-care that that's the only thing I'm going to think about. My life is going to become consumed with self-care. Here's the thing. Stewarding our spirit and our soul is a gift from Jesus. He gave us practices to help us with that. The twist, the steal comes from, the killing comes from when Satan convinces us to say, you know what? At the expense of all other things, it's about my self-care. At the expense of the rest of life and the rest of people around me, and the expense of the gifts and talents and abilities he's given me, self-care is my thing. Any of these can become the master. The other take on this is, look, we get caught in isolation. We say, look, oh, you know what? I'm not going to build my life on my friends. I just don't need friends. Or my family, we don't need friends. We're just going to be the Allen Four. I've got my wife and my 2 girls, and we don't need anybody else. And what happens is really good things get twisted. They get twisted, and right, again, we've got a mark to make in the world. We've got pain to navigate. We've got relationships that we are meant to experience and be givers and receivers in, to be part of reciprocal relationships. And we've got full life to be had. We've got full life to be experienced. And so Jesus comes along and says, look, there's a thief and he's trying to steal really good things and he's twisting all the ideas. And he's not just killing the ideas. What he's really doing is gradually killing your life, which is why we keep coming back to this thing of, wait, I want to have life. Wait, isn't there more than this? Wait, shouldn't it be different? Wait, I want a new me. I want a new you. See, what Satan's really attempting to get us to do in there is he is pushing us to live a controlling life. He's pushing us to live a life where we either think we are in control or we assume we should be in control. Listen, he's pushing us to live a life where we think we are in control or we assume we are supposed to be in control. I'm going to control that. I am going to prove myself. I will be the only controller of my name. I will be the only controller of my opportunities. Oh, I'll control that pain. I'll control what you can and can't do to me. I'll control how I respect. I'll control that. I'll control my friends. I'll manipulate. I'll make people be my friends, or I'll create the distance. I will control all of that, and that is going to get me life at the end. And we get caught in this thing of thinking that we are in control or that we're supposed to control it for that. Now, listen, I know that none of us have issues with control. So let's talk about other people for a minute, okay? Right? Let's just show of hands. Do any of you know anybody with control issues? Just put your hands in the air. Put them up. Put them up. If you're not hand in the air, you're it. Major. Okay? That's the easiest question we've ever asked in this church ever, okay? We all know people with control. And here's the problem, right? None of us have control problems, but we all know people with control problems. So again, let's just talk about them for a second, right? Listen. Isn't it kind of exhausting being around those people? Isn't it? It's kind of exhausting. It's kind of tiring, right? They're always trying to control everything, and everything's got to be just this way, and everything's got to be their way, and they're controlling it, and they're going to control how they process everything, and right? It's kind of exhausting. Well, listen, just since we're talking about other people, just think if it's that tiring being around controlling people, think how tiring it must be to be a controlling person. Because you weren't made to live that way. You weren't made to either think you were controlling all that, and more importantly, you weren't made to live like you were supposed to somehow control all of that. See, Jesus is painting a picture not of controlling, but of following. Let's look at a couple more verses. He plays it out even a little bit more. Verse 11 through, we'll go through around verse 15. He says, I am the good shepherd. The what kind of shepherd? I'm the what? Good shepherd. I'm a good leader. I'm a good guide. The good shepherd. I'm so good, in fact, that I would lay down my life for you. I'm so good that I would lay down my life for you. The hired hand, kind of pointing to this thief here, right, is not the shepherd, and he doesn't own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he just runs. He abandons the sheep and he runs away. Then the wolf attacks and the flock scatters. The man runs away, or the thief runs away, because, listen, he's a hired hand. And he never cared for you anyways. The same thief that takes the idea and warps it and tries to convince us and push us into a controlling life, listen, he was never in it for you in the first place. And when trouble comes, this doesn't hold up. Jesus says it again just to try and bookend it. He says, I'm the good shepherd. I'm the good shepherd. And I just want to remind you that I know my sheep, and my sheep, they know me, and they can keep knowing me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for them. See, here's the thing. Satan, the thief, is pushing us into a controlling life. And Jesus is inviting us into a surrendering life. Satan's pushing us into a controlling life. Jesus is inviting us into a surrendering life. Let's be clear here. Let's be clear. Controlling things can get you some things. Let's not make it what it's not. Being a controlling person and controlling all that, it can get you some things. It can get you a raise. It can get you a lot of new jobs. It can probably get you a promotion. It could get you some success. It could get you some Super Bowl titles. It could, right? There's some good in that, right? It can get you some pain resilience. It can get you through some things. It can help you ignore some things, right? It can push you through on some things. Controlling that can. Controlling all of that can probably, at the end of the day, get some people who look like your friends and who think you're their friend. I mean, controlling thing can get a lot of people around you. It can create a lot of good experiences. It can create a lot of high moments in life. Controlling things can get you things. But surrendering gets you a new you. Surrendering gets you a new you. And see, a new you isn't by more controlling. A new you is by more surrendering. And Jesus, just being honest, he's putting it on the table and saying, look, you're being pushed into controlling. That's the pattern. That's the common pattern of the world. Most of us spend most of our lives white-knuckled on something or some things, hoping they'll create a new us. And Jesus comes along in the middle of that and he says, Look, that thief who's convincing you to control everything, he was never in it for you. And when trouble comes, he's not there. I want to invite you into just surrendering to me. I want to invite you, surrender to me and let me clear the dust off what's been twisted. See, you don't work all of this to enjoy life. You surrender to me to get full life. You don't work this system, you don't work this grid to try and enjoy life. You surrender to me to experience life, to find life. But here's the thing, I get it, right? You're in church, and we're in church, we're doing this thing, and surrendering feels like a word that we should use, right? I mean, it's kind of it's great. But what does it really mean? When we're living a surrendering life, when Jesus is inviting us to say, hey, you be the sheep, let me be the shepherd. You don't have to be the leader of your own life. You don't have to be that. Let me be that. Let me lead you out in good places. Let me lead you into healing. Let me lead you to Jesus-centered relationships that can be a gift to your life, not have the pressure of being the whole foundation of your life. Let me lead your life so you can just have mine, so you don't have to work in hopes that you'll get to enjoy it. But what does surrendering really mean? There's a couple things. One, it simply means this: surrendering is giving our life to Jesus and then walking with him in his ways. Surrendering is giving our life to Jesus and then walking with him in his ways. Do you just see it, man? The shepherd, he comes up to the gate, he rattles that gate, the sheep start to stir, and then he starts calling them by name. And he knows them, and he leads them out, and he leads them out into good places and good pasture, where they've got plenty and where he can protect them. And we'll talk about this some next week, but he leads them out, and the way in which he leads them out gives him an opportunity to help them heal. See, surrendering is giving our life to Jesus and saying, look, I don't have to be in control, nor am I actually in control even when I think I am. So surrender is giving our life to Jesus and walking with him, relationally walking with him like a sheep and a shepherd and in his ways. There's another one. I want to give you a second one. It's simply this, that surrendering is resting in both Jesus' ability and his desire to lead you in a loving way. Surrendering is just resting in Jesus, both his ability and his desire to lead you in a loving way. Killing yourself to prove yourself is not a very loving way. Becoming so consumed with our pain we see nothing else, to the fact that it becomes our identity and our only point, or ignoring our pain, it's not a very loving way. Putting something on our friends that they were never meant to carry and expecting us to be the same to them is not actually a very loving way. hoping that we could do it just right and somehow enjoy it at the end is not a very loving way. Surrendering is looking at Jesus and just resting in both his ability and his desire to lead and to guide and to shape and to mold and to heal and to build relationships and family and friendship in a very loving way. Surrendering to Jesus is resting in his desire and his ability to reveal to us the reason he made us and the difference he designed us to make in the world. It's resting in his desire and his ability to lead and to guide in a very loving way. But, there's this thing of how do we know that, right? How do we navigate that? How do we understand, look, this thing of controlling, it's the common pattern, right? It's what we all naturally find ourselves doing, right? So how do we hear and follow Jesus out of that pattern and into a life of surrendering? Not just a moment of surrender here and there, but a life of where we're surrendering. I think one of the best ways is to just pause on occasion and ask some questions about just the condition and shape and the makeup of our own soul in any given moment. Throughout this series, as we kind of talk about, okay, how do we walk with Jesus? How does Jesus shepherd us in a way that we get to experience a new you? We're just going to give some questions at the end of each week that just can be just tools to us to help us pause along the way and say, okay, am I experiencing everything Jesus has for me here? Am I experiencing everything Jesus is in me here? So I want to give you 5 questions today, not because you need to ask all 5, and not because you'll be able to write all 5 down, okay? You're not going to get that written down fast enough. So 5 questions in which we just say, hey, in this, am I surrendering? Am I letting Jesus lead? Or am I somehow living like I'm in control of all these things, or like I'm supposed to be in control, and like that's somehow the burden I'm supposed to bear, like that's what I'm supposed to carry? I want to just point your attention to one question for a minute. Number 3. Number 3. It's just this real simple, but I think altering question where we just ask, hey, in what areas of my life am I not just controlling things, but what areas of my life am I trying to convince Jesus? Do you know Jesus doesn't have to be convinced? He doesn't have to be convinced to love you. Doesn't have to be convinced to help the person that you're aching for. Doesn't have to be convinced to come through for you. Doesn't have to be convinced to weep with you, to sit with you in your pain. Doesn't have to be convinced to help you heal. Doesn't have to be convinced to show you why he created you and why he made you. Doesn't have to be convinced to give you relational wisdom and understanding. He doesn't have to be convinced. And part of the reason I just highlighted that one is just because where I am. It's probably 4 or 5 months ago, I could take you to the spot in my living room where so many kind of defining moments happened with me and Jesus. And I can take you to the end of a couch in this little arm that I was kneeling at, where it was just like Jesus in all his kindness interrupted my prayer that was going in his direction. He just interrupted, like just inserted his own voice into that. And the question was simple and it was clear and it was so freeing to me in the moment. And I ask myself this almost every day now, just for a while. Maybe I will the rest of my life. I don't know, but Jesus just, as clearly as I know how to convey that Jesus just in my soul just said to me, John, you don't have to convince me. Stop trying to convince me. Stop trying to convince me. Stop trying to convince me. Because you know what trying to convince Jesus is? It's trying to control Jesus, or acting like we're somehow supposed to control Jesus, or acting like we're somehow supposed to control the equation that gets Jesus to do the thing we want Jesus to do. And most of the time, Jesus already said he wanted to do that thing. Stop trying to convince me. John, you don't have to convince me to hear you. I'm already listening. I was listening before you start talking. John, you don't have to convince me to try and rescue that person or heal their pain or help them understand. You don't have to try and convince me. I want to do that more than you. I'm inviting you into what I'm already doing. I'm trying to convince you, John, to join with me. I'll be the shepherd. You be the sheep. You don't have to try and convince me to come through when you're just going to walk in obedience and do what I asked you to do. You don't have to try and convince me. I don't know if you know this, but can I just tell you how much weight you can shed in the millisecond you stop trying to convince Jesus to do something or to hear you or to be with you or to, right? Listen, there's all sorts of room for raw, unfiltered honesty with Jesus, but none of it has to be about trying to convince him to hear a raw, unfiltered honesty. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me. But if you find some of your energy going to just trying to convince Jesus, and maybe it's been a subtle part of life with Jesus for you for decades, maybe resting in his desire and his ability to lovingly lead you will just allow some permission for the soul to breathe and prayers to expand and how we see him to expand. Maybe that's not your thing at all. I want to point you to one more, the very last one. Who am I encouraging in their surrendering or letting go of control? See, here's the risk. Where oftentimes full life with Jesus gets stolen is we grab a truth, we grab some great thing about us and God, and we hoard it and we hold it. And like Gwen reminded us, if you were here last week, Gwen Jackson reminded us that what Paul reminded us from the book of Galatians is that what really matters is faith that expresses itself in love. Faith expressing itself in love. Part of the gift we are to one another is we sit with each other while we're learning to let go of control. We encourage each other while we're trying to learn to let go of control. We pray for each other while we're trying to learn to let go of control. We get mad with each other when we're trying to learn how to, because it's kind of hard. But who are you encouraging? Not by trying to fix it for them, not trying to be their answer, not trying to give them little cliche answers, but by just being with them. Surrendering is this invitation of Jesus in complete contrast to the push to control. Surrender is this invitation of Jesus to just give our life to him and walk with him and in his ways. So much of that gets its momentum when we just rest in his desire and his ability to lead us in a very loving way. Here's what I'd love to do just for a minute is just to even give you, in this beginning of a new year and this new movement of where you say, man, I want to have that. I want to have a new you. I want it to be me. I want a new me. Maybe it just begins with a moment where we just say, okay, Jesus, where am I just controlling? Where have I picked up this need to control? Where was I taught I was supposed to control everything? Where am I living trying to control you and I didn't even know it? And maybe these questions would just be a guide to you. Maybe you'll have other questions already filtering in to your mind and your heart. Would you bow your heads and close your eyes for just a minute? Maybe just to honor the people around you for a second and give them some space. And just ask, Jesus, where in this season, or maybe where for all the days of my life, have I lived controlling some things I don't have to control? Jesus, where am I trying so hard to prove myself? Jesus, where am I so caught on my own pain that the only thing I've done for the last 5 or 10 years is try and master self-care? Where am I ignoring my pain, Jesus, trying to control my own response to it? Just where am I controlling that? Jesus, where am I controlling my life by trying to make the very foundation of it my friends? Where am I treating them like more of the very foundation than just the gift they are for me to experience part of full life with you. Jesus, where am I trying to convince you? Show me where I'm trying to convince you. Jesus, I thank you that in every one of those responses that you give to us, and those questions, and probably lots more, I thank you that every one of them, you respond. There it is. You respond with your love. You're a good shepherd. You're not a mad and angry and impatient shepherd. You're a good shepherd. You're a good leader, a good savior, a good guide, a good Lord. And so as we ask the question, we hear your answer. We rest that your answer always comes with love. It always comes with hope. It always comes with potential. Thanks for that. Thanks that even now you'd interrupt some of us and say, and even in the asking, stop trying to convince me. I already hear you. I already love you. Jesus, for your good and gentle and yet strong guiding of our lives, we say thank you. For those of us who are young enough, we're sitting here and we're in our late teens and we're in our 20s, and we could break a whole cycle before we build 30 and 40 years of controlling habits. And we just say here, right now, Jesus, capture us with the potential of what it can be to just live a life surrendering to you. We love you for all of it. We love you for your goodness to us. We love you for your patience. And we love you for being clear enough to point out there's a very real enemy. It's working pretty hard to make sure we don't have a new us. Thanks that you're bigger and better and you're stronger and you've overcome the grave and you've overcome it. We love you for it. We pray these things, Jesus, in your name and in your way with confidence that you already hear us and you already love us. Amen. Amen, everybody.